Now, even when I became Prime Minister, their unemployment rate was still somewhere around the 14% mark. 14%. We got it down to 6.5%. So we've made a huge difference for the better. I've been, with our government, pouring money into early childhood education for Pacific people. We've got the numbers of Pacific kids in those centres way, way up. And I'm talking Pacific language centres, so the kids have a chance to carry on the language of their forebears. The level of achievement in education's up, health status is up. We've got so many more Pacific organisations working with their people on basic health care. We've got the Pacific Radio Trust, which is running Pacific radio right throughout New Zealand. So many things have happened for Pacific people.
But they're annoyed, and some of them are annoyed because of their strong Christian principles for some of that community, with things like the prostitute law reform and the civil unions. How do you combat that? Because
I've won 2 elections since the prostitution law reform bill was passed. I've won 1 since the civil union bill was passed, and I've won with very, very strong support from the Pacific community. This year, probably more than any other year, the doors of Pacific churches have been opened to me to go in and talk about Labour and the importance of voting. I've found incredible warmth in the community. They hear someone like Lockwood Smith say what the National Party really thinks about them, and frankly, the response we've had is absolutely unwavering support for Pacific people.
Stacey Jones sent you his support this week. Is it hard to get celebrity endorsement? Do you find that iconic people are reticent to nail their colours?
Not at all. In fact, our launch, we had Oscar Kitely doing the emceeing, and we had King Kapisi supporting us. We've had no trouble, actually, in having very prominent people who are icons of youth culture, in particular, come out and support us. It's not something I've ever pushed particularly hard, but it's great when it comes. Someone like Stacey Jones, I've known him since he was a little bruiser in the Point Chev Rugby League Club, and his granddad's in the Point Chev RSA Bowling Club, which I go to every opening and closing of. So I know the family, great family, and always been a Labour family, and I was thrilled when Stacey came down to the
So that was
Manukau
unsolicited,
Hall.
he just turned up?
Well, the League family has been so annoyed by what the 2 retired rugby players did. So annoyed, very upset, and they wanted to help.
Unemployment is at 4.2%. It's predicted to balloon to just under 6%. What are you going to do if elected in the 4th term to try and stop that from growing further?
Well, I'm not prepared to see it to go back to where it was before I became Prime Minister. So I've got to bring forward things that are job-rich. I announced one of those projects today, a new rail project out at Wiri. The beauty of this, by the way, is not only is it $9.1 million of job creation, it will mean that we take 100,000 truck movements a year off the road in Auckland, going between South Auckland and the port. You see, 80% of what's going through to ports of Auckland is coming through the south, and it's trucked through. And yet there is Ports of Auckland kind of inland container depot right by the rail line. Now we're going to connect it to the rail line so that when the stuff comes up to be repacked into the containers at Wiri, it'll get on the train, it'll go to the port. 100,000 truck movements. This is fantastic, not only for lowering traffic congestion, but also, of course, for the small family car that's battling on the highway, it's better, and you get the greenhouse gas emissions down.
But let's move on to the campaign. You campaigned on trust. This hasn't worked quite like you expected it to, has it?
Oh, pretty much it has, because one of the most common things I get when I'm out and about around the malls and the work sites is people coming up and saying to me, I don't trust John Key. They don't trust him. They feel that someone who flip-flops like this, 1 minute the war in Iraq was a great idea, the next it was a hoax. 1 minute working for families was communism by stealth, the next he's all for it. 1 minute interest-free student loans are the most reckless and irresponsible thing the Labour government's ever done. Then he's all for it. I mean, this doesn't add up. And people look at the guy and they say, he would say anything.
But then why not just leave it at that? Why did Mike Williams go over to Australia to try and dig up something on him? And when he found nothing, why didn't he just shut up?
Well, he's had a bit of a crusade on it, and so has the Herald and its journalists. And last weekend, they devoted a 2-page feature in an editorial to saying that there are a whole lot of questions about Mr. Key's period in that wide boy
But he's
era.
been cleared.
No, hang on, listen to what I'm saying. he has not answered those questions consistently. And a Herald editorial said, this is a worry. These questions are legitimately asked, and they believe they're legitimately asked. What are the answers? Because we've had different answers. Now, leave it at that. From my point of view, it's never been an issue for me. It's never been an issue I've run. But I do say that in public life, we have to be prepared to have people rake over our background. They'll even get into our spouse's background. Do you know that in June this year, when the Health Research Council grants were announced, my husband got a grant because he is a researcher. He goes back 40 years in the university. Immediately that grant was announced, the National Party put an Official Information Act request demanding to see all the reviewers' reports, really trying to get to some smear that would suggest my husband got grants, not because of his academic reputation, but because of me. Well, this is preposterous. Now, I haven't ever put that into the media before, but the thought that Mr. Key thinks that he's going to sit there and no one's ever going to do any research on him is ridiculous. The rest of us have had our lives raked over.
With that, with your lives being raked over, I often wonder how, if it was me, how furious I'd be at the media speculation and the internet gutter snipe speculation about you and your husband. Does it frustrate you? Do you get angry?
Well, you just got to have a thick skin, and frankly, I never even look at the internet site stuff.
How does he cope with it?
Well, my husband doesn't like it at all. He's a much more delicate flower than I am, and my mother gets even more upset about the stuff that she sees. Thank heavens they don't go into the internet, or that might be coronary territory. But you just got to have a thick skin. But I do worry about the Americanisation of our politics that has come with the internet. I think it's brought a decidedly nastier air.
It has. It's got a lot nastier this time around.
A lot nastier. And I remember going to the States a number of years ago. I was given one of those visitor grants, which I really appreciate. I got to meet people across the States over a period of a week or so. And I remember one night the program put me for dinner in a home with Republicans. And, you know, they were nice people. But the things they said about the Democrats, it just made my spine crawl, because I wouldn't have said those things about anybody. And I feel that the Americanisation of our politics here, by the right wing of politics and this Christian fundamentalism, is kind of bringing a sort of side to New Zealand which we never had and which isn't very savoury.
Just to go back to that HV thing for a second, because I know you want to move away from it and I don't want to dwell on it, but the TV3 poll last night puts National on 46, ACT on 2.8, put Labour down to 33. Now, I know you can dismiss the polls and say that your own feelings out there are different, but isn't this a reaction to the HV? Aren't people saying, you know, wouldn't it have been better to just leave the don't trust Key to the things he's done himself?
Well, as I say, it was a bit of a crusade by our president.
Do you want to punch Mike Williams?
Well, it wasn't a campaign strategy decision of the Labour Party, I can tell you.
But you must have known where he was.
Sure, I knew where he was. But hey, it's not a crime to go to Melbourne. You know, the Herald journalist went to Melbourne. Who's turned on the Herald? The Herald writes 2 pages in editorial saying there's questions here Mr. Key hasn't answered satisfactorily. Now, you know, that's life. That's
so you let him go, you want him to go, because if he does find something, we have to know.
Well, if he thinks there's something there, he should go and check it out. But it's not a campaign strategy of the Labour Party. You know, our president is the president. He acts independently in that respect. But at the end of the day, I think that between Labour and Friends and National and Friends, this election is incredibly close. And one of the frustrations at this point of every election campaign is I run into Labour supporters and say, oh, all the way for you, Helen, you know, we need a Labour-led government, and I'm going to help you by giving one of my votes to someone else. And I say, please don't do that, because if you give your vote to someone else, you're actually undermining my ability to put a government together.
But wouldn't it help you to have, say, Winston Peters in power there?
Well, we're certainly not asking anyone to vote for New Zealand First. We're saying vote for Labour, which stands a good chance of leading the next government if it gets a good enough vote.
Because one of the things as well with your campaign on trust is that you backed Winston, and a lot of people don't trust Winston. And so does a little bit of that rub off on you for being there, of taking his word? Because as much as we can, as much as he can answer, I mean, there's no one better at answering a question. Like, I mean, you know, no one can tell you that the sky is green like Winston, and you'll walk out of it thinking that perhaps it is green.
Well, actually, I didn't back him. What I said was the fellow deserves a chance to put his case.